What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. The season for the Steelers is over. It is championship week. AFC NFC championship games playing on Sunday, but the Steelers season is over. Started with a lot of high hopes, a few good drafts in a row, a pretty intriguing free agent class, starting over in places like quarterback and inside linebacker, and coming in with our GMs kicking butt, a new offensive coordinator. Steeler fans had high hopes, only to end on a very similar track that we have for the past 8 years. 10-7, first wild card round, get blown out of the water, have a slight comeback but fall behind too big to come back in the end. No resistance on defense. Pittsburgh finishes 10-7, gets a first round playoff out again, have not won a playoff game in 8 years, for their last 6, I believe, in the Mike Tomlin era. So I wanted to bring you guys 2 videos in the next 2 weeks, one today and one next week, just giving an overview of the performances, talking about the stats, talking about the ranks, talking about kind of where it started, where it went wrong, and kind of how to go forward. I'm not going to do a free agency video yet. That's going to be a separate video. I'm not going to talk about my solutions on who should stay, who should go, who we should bring in, who we should re-sign, who we should restructure. Those are all going to be separate videos. I'm going to do, after I do the kind of total recap of both sides of the ball, then I will get into my free agent list, who I think we should go after, who we should cut, who we should keep, and all that fun stuff. This is not going to be a solutions video as much as it's going to be an overview of the Pittsburgh Steelers 2024/25 offense. I'm just going to give you guys some rankings real quick and then some stats, and we'll kind of talk about it. So Pittsburgh starts off with Justin Fields at quarterback and then goes to Russell Wilson. First, I'm going to give you guys the rankings of where Pittsburgh ranked among the league in the NFL this year. In passing yards, Pittsburgh ranks 27th in the NFL at 192 yards per game. That's out of 32 teams, obviously. Rushing yards, Pittsburgh ranks 11th at 127.4 yards per game. In total yards, Pittsburgh's offense ranks 23rd out of 32 at 319.4 yards per game. And in points per game, Pittsburgh ranks in the middle of the league at 16th at 22.4 points per game. So middle of the league as far as points, bottom third as far as total yards, almost top 10 in rushing yards, but then 27th out of 32 in passing yards. So Pittsburgh having a lot more success on the ground than through the air, and ranking much lower than expected since we cleaned the quarterback room out last year. Got Justin Fields for super cheap in a trade for, a 5th or 6th round pick, and then got Russell Wilson on a veteran minimum deal where the Broncos paid, $40 million, and we paid nothing, essentially, to upgrade our room last year from Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and whoever else was here, Kenny Pickett, and then bringing in Fields and Wilson to still be this low in passing is pretty concerning. I'm not going to lie. There's, of course, some kind of hammering or drilling going on outside, so I apologize. But those are Pittsburgh Steelers rankings. I'm going to give you guys stats. Now, Justin Fields comes in, starts the year because Russell Wilson missed all that practice and did not play the first 6 games of the season. Justin Fields comes in and goes 4-2 in his first 6 games, shows, in my opinion, market improvement over his Chicago Bears past. Justin Fields' stats for the year are 106 out of 161 passing, 1,106 total yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also added 289 yards on the ground and 5 touchdowns on the ground. So the 1,106 and 5 touchdowns through the air doesn't look amazing, but then you add in almost 300 yards on the ground plus 5 more touchdowns. All of a sudden, you're looking at some pretty solid stats. Again, Fields comes in and goes 4-2 in his first 6 games, starting for the Steelers. And again, I came in with low expectations on Fields. Fields is one of those guys, freakish athlete, one of the best athletes in the NFL. I always say second best athletic quarterback behind Lamar Jackson. Cannon for an arm, young, crazy athletic, can make guys miss tackles, can help the offensive line out, but made bad decisions, wasn't really accurate downfield, didn't make the best decisions, turned the ball over a lot. Pittsburgh was able to harness the athleticism And as we saw later in the season, when Russell Wilson started playing quarterback, Fields would come in on some packages for goal line, for fourth down. They didn't do it nearly enough, but when they did, it was more often than not successful. It had a pretty good success rate of Justin Fields doing some play fakes, some scrambling, getting some close first downs. But Fields used his legs really well and played a pretty conservative game plan. They turned Justin Fields from a wildly unpredictable athlete who would have big splash plays and big turnovers into a guy who didn't make a ton of big plays with his arm, but made most of his plays with his legs. He was conservative. He was a definition for me of a game manager, a guy that would get in there and do just enough. He would win games. He'd make the occasional play with his arm. He'd make really smart plays with his feet. He would throw the ball when he could, but he wouldn't turn the ball over. Justin Fields, again, only had one interception the entire year. I think he had 4 fumbles in total, but I'm not sure if many or any of those were lost fumbles. But only one interception on the year for Justin Fields. A big improvement through 6 games than what he had for Chicago. So they really got him to learn the system, to play within the system, to use his legs well, and at times to flash with his arm. But he didn't. Taking away the interceptions also took away some of the bigger plays downfield. Pittsburgh was not a flashy offense. They were efficient. They were kind of boring. They were smart, but they weren't flashy. So that's kind of where Fields was. And then all of a sudden, Russell Wilson comes in after getting healthy and starts to really flash for us. His final stats to end the season, he comes in, he starts off, I think, was he 5-1 to start? I think 5-1 to start, and then won only one of his last 6 games. Winds up with a 6-5 record in 11 starts, almost 500. 11 starts, 6 wins, 5 losses. Starts off like 5-1, beating the teams he should beat, and then when the big schedule hit, when the hard teams came in, when we start playing teams like Baltimore again, Cincinnati, who has the good offense, the real tough teams like Kansas City and Philadelphia, they were blowing us out of the water. It wasn't just kind of falling back a little bit because of better teams. It was getting blown out of the water, and Russell Wilson was not really that effective on offense anymore. But his total stats for the year are 214 out of 336, with 2,482 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, with a 6-5 record. So also added a couple short touchdowns on goal line, kind of tush-push plays as well. But Russell Wilson, again, came in showing us what the deep ball could be, really utilizing George Pickens, utilizing Calvin Austin a lot more, seeing a few of his one-on-one deep ball connections, middle of the field a little bit, using Darnell Washington on that tight end drag release play a lot more, using Van Jefferson down by the goal line a lot more, unleashing what some of the talent in Pittsburgh could be that Justin Fields didn't know how to use or wasn't called to use. But then, again, when the competition got sharp, when Russell Wilson kind of got a little weathered, he started kind of coming back down to earth. The league kind of knew what to expect, and his body got a little beat up. We started seeing Wilson, more turnovers, more erratic. The play calling didn't help things at all. The offensive line didn't help because Wilson is not as fast as he used to be. He can't avoid sacks. That's the big benefit to Justin Fields, making the offensive line better. Fields being a running threat also makes the running game better, which really stagnated toward the end of the year. And so you have to kind of wonder, are you getting, with Justin Fields, you're getting a guy who can be pretty consistent, pretty conservative, and he'll flash a little bit, but not a ton, but he makes your running game and your line better? Or do you go with a Russell Wilson who's got big play ability, who's a much better passer, who is going to give you those big plays, but also is not going to use the middle of the field a ton? He's going to hold the ball a little bit too much, and he's not going to be able to avoid sacks, so your line's going to get killed. He's going to get a little too reliant on one-dimensional offense, so the running game's not going to be as good. So the Russell Wilson that was unlocking the offense earlier in the year, now suddenly he's making everyone kind of one-dimensional, making the offense flat. That's kind of what happened passing the ball. Running the ball, let's talk about it, because for quarterbacks, again, I will discuss what to do later, because right now, as of this moment, I think all 3 quarterbacks, I think Kyle Allen as well, they were all on 1-year deals. But we got all 3 of them super cheap. They were all getting paid like $1.3 million veteran minimums, because Russell Wilson was getting $40 million from Denver. Chicago was paying Justin Fields, and Fields came over on a cheap trade. So now we have to choose one of these quarterbacks. Do you choose the young, athletic guy who improved here in Pittsburgh, thinking that the Pittsburgh system and another year of being in the system and being a full-time starter now, having sat behind Russell Wilson and being able to corral the turnovers? Can he be the guy to unlock his full potential and go beyond the solid 4-2 that he did this year? Can he take the no interceptions and smarter passes and now get better at looking downfield and utilizing his receivers and utilizing the middle of the field better and being a more complete quarterback, having sat behind Russ now and learned the system better? Or do you go with a Russell Wilson who started off showing us what he can do against bad teams and beating guys up, but trusting an older quarterback who's now another year older, and then showed what he did not do against really good teams? So you got to pick one now. Is it the older veteran that's smarter and a better passer overall, or do you go with the more conservative guy that's gonna be efficient and not turn the ball over and potentially see if he can unlock his franchise potential? So that is where the quarterbacks are. And sorry again for the drilling out there. I don't know what the hell they're doing. It just started when I start recording, of course. Running the ball, we have more questions because both Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren and Cordero Patterson, all three of our rotational running backs in this core, are all free agents. I think maybe Jaylen Warren's restricted, but I'm not entirely sure. I know Najee is our big free agent this year. So all three of the guys running the ball for us, plus our two signal callers, are all free agents. A lot of big money decisions to make about the future of the franchise on offense. Najee Harris, 263 carries for 1,043 yards. That is 4.0 yards per carry with 6 touchdowns on the ground. He also added 36 catches for 283 yards as a receiver. Jaylen Warren, 120 carries, that is for 511 yards. That is 4.3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown on the ground. Also added 38 catches for 310 yards as a receiver. So again, Najee Harris, your big tackle-breaking physical back, 4 yards per carry, not as much as Jaylen Warren, still not as high as Pittsburgh fans would like, but higher than it's been in the last couple of years. 4 seasons for us, 4,000-yard seasons. You can say what you want about the extra game, the extra amount of carries. 1,000-yard seasons don't mean now what they used to mean, but hey, 4 years, 4,000-yard seasons, you can't be too mad at Najee Harris. That being said, he does slow down by the end of the year consistently. He had a really kind of rough end of the year. That plays into quarterback play. Play calling got really bad and stagnated there for a while. The line got really bad. So how much do you put on Najee Harris and how much do you put on the rest of the team around him? With those dumb pitch plays from Arthur Smith and the run pass and the 2 tackles being terrible, getting no push, the injuries, the rookies, how much do you put on that? Jaylen Warren, obviously the higher yards per carry, the bigger burst, the faster back, has that combination of speed with his power that Najee doesn't have. Also is the better receiver out of the backfield. Also, you can argue is a better blocker picking up blitzes out of the two. But Najee is your bell cow. Najee is your consistent 4-year in the NFL, proving he can get it done guy. So what do you do there? Again, the running game wound up being 11th in the NFL, almost top 10, right outside of the top 10. That is the best part of our offense. And for the most part, especially early in the year when you had that dual threat with Justin Fields, being able to either do the inside handoff and keep it or hand it off, you had a much more successful team. I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be able to or want to pay both guys. I think Cordero Patterson's gone, unless he comes back on a vet minimum. He's an Arthur Smith guy who Arthur Smith likes. I don't think we need 3 guys in the rotation. I think we can be a good 2-guy offense, especially if you keep Justin Fields and your quarterback's going to run. I think you need 2 running backs in this system. I don't think Cordero Patterson's needed. I won't talk about re-signing guys yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. But you need 2 guys. So do you just keep Jaylen Warren? He's going to cost a lot less, I think, than Najee Harris. But can he be the 1A guy? Can he be the number 1 guy? Because you don't want, if you bring a rookie in or bring somebody unproven in, you don't want them going right to 1A. You want Jaylen Warren, the guy in your system, being your bell cow 1A dominant back. But can he be that without Najee Harris? Can he work as a 1A, 1B with a rookie coming in right away? Again, he's going to cost less and give you more overall as a runner, but can he do that with 100-something extra carries? Can he stay healthy? Can he be durable? Can he be consistently a 1,000-yard back? A lot of questions there. A lot of questions. Receiving, I'm going to highlight 4 guys, the 4 guys that were in the game most. I'm not going to give you Mike Williams stats. He finished with like 263, I think. He was the 4th or 5th receiving option coming over from the trade. He's a free agent. A lot of receivers are free agents in this class now, or are guys that you can talk about. Are they worth bringing back or not? We'll start with our leader, George Pickens. That's another one. He's not a free agent, but he's in, I think, his coming into his 4th season. So do you if you're gonna extend the guy or re-sign the guy, now's the year that you do it. And how much money is he going to cost versus talent versus production versus distractions on and off the field? George Pickens, a 900-yard season, came in with 901 to the last game of the season and got -1 yard in the last game, so finished with 900 yards. 59 catches, 900 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Tight end Pat Freiermuth was second this year, 65 catches, 653 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Calvin Austin, your slot receiver, 36 catches, 548 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And Van Jefferson, our free agent receiver signing that was number 2 on the outside, 24 catches, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns. Out of these 4, Pat's been extended already, I believe, and Pickens has 1 more year. They have to figure out what they want to do with extensions or 5th-year options or whatever the case might be. Calvin Austin's going to be here again 1 more year, same deal as Pickens. And then Van Jefferson was a 1-year signing, I believe. And to be honest, no suspense here. I think that 24 catches for 276 and 2 touchdowns can go. I don't think we need to keep that here. Van Jefferson's a serviceable NFL receiver. He had I think a 900-yard season playing for the Rams with Matt Stafford. He played okay in Atlanta. He's proven he can be a viable rotational receiver. He can fill in. He can be a 3 or 4. He can be a 2 when he has to be. The dude's not a bad blocker. He's not a bad deep ball runner. He got used a lot more when Russell Wilson first came in. His 2 touchdowns came in the first 3 weeks of Russell Wilson playing. Russell started using him a lot more. He's got decent hands. He can be a receiver that catches in traffic. He doesn't get a lot of space. He doesn't get open, but he can catch in traffic a little bit. But I think you can get 276 yards and 2 touchdowns from any NFL 4th receiver. I think anybody could give you that. I think if we had played Ben Skoranek more, he could have given you that as a better blocker and special teamer. I think Scotty Miller could have given you that as a smaller slot guy who can play on the outside for a guy that size. I think Mike Williams, he did give us that in a few games when he came in after the trade. So I think Van can go. Again, Pickens is the big question. He's got, at times, more talent than almost any receiver in the NFL. He makes catches that pretty much nobody in the NFL can make. But he also has character issues off the field. He has questions about his efforts. He dropped a couple of balls toward the end there. And, is he worth the money he's going to want to require? Does he fall into that same Antonio Brown situation or Deontay Johnson situation? Pittsburgh has proven they are willing to get rid of the number 1 receiver if they cause problems to replace him with somebody else, because Pittsburgh drafts receivers well. And there are a lot of good receivers in this draft. So does Pickens fall under another Deontay or Chase Claypool or Martavis Bryant or Antonio Brown, who's a guy with extreme talent who does a lot for us but never fully gets to his full unlocked potential here in Pittsburgh and then goes somewhere else and falls off the face of the earth like those other guys did? Or is Pickens good enough, and I think he might be, to show what he can do somewhere else if he can keep his temper in check? But is he worth the money, and do we want to spend it? That's the question. Freiermuth, pretty solid season in spite of Russell Wilson not using him in the middle of the field enough. Calvin Austin, really good season, mostly unlocked when Russell Wilson came in. He really surprised me in a positive way this year once Russell Wilson got there. And then Van Jefferson, like I said, as the 4th guy, you don't got to keep him. So those are your receiving numbers. And then we'll talk quickly about offensive line. There's really no place online to get reputable offensive line numbers. I had to do a lot of digging to find some numbers and check those numbers. You can't find a lot of offensive line stats as far as pressures and sacks. The one thing that I did find is fairly obvious. Broderick Jones and Dan Moore were the 2 worst this season. Dan Moore gave up one of the league highs, I think, with 12 sacks, mostly in his final 7 games. First 10 games, Dan Moore had the best stretch of his career. Last 7 games was the worst lineman in the NFL, giving up most of his 12 sacks in those last 7 games. Horrible. Broderick Jones started off the season as one of the worst linemen in the league, coming in hurt, playing in his non-natural spot, but gave a lot of sacks up. And then the second half of the season, those last 7 or 8 games, gave up much less sacks. I think only 3 in the last 7 games, but a lot of pressures. Some more pressures than most people gave up. So those 2 guys are 2 guys to look at. Dan Moore's a free agent. Again, no suspense here. I'd let him go. That's clear. I'd move Broderick Jones to Dan Moore's spot. Broderick Jones came in this year hurt and, was playing at right tackle instead of left. So now that Broderick's got a full offseason to get back into shape, get healthy, and play at his natural position, let's see if we can recapture some of that rookie magic that he had, because he played pretty well in his first year. Otherwise, getting Troy Fautanu back is going to help us. James Daniels was hurt for most of the year. Seumalo missed the first part of the year. He came back. Seumalo is a potential cap casualty. James Daniels is a very good veteran who played well when he was out there, but then got hurt, and now he's going to go require more money somewhere else. So I think James Daniels is gone. That being said, Fautanu is going to get back healthy, our rookie. Let's see what we have in him. We had the two rookies that did play. McCormick and Frazier played very well this year. Those two guys were excellent, and we have a potential now next year for three rookies to come in here and play side by side with Fautanu, Frazier, and McCormick alongside two other guys. So let's see what we get there. Broderick Jones playing in his natural spot, and maybe another signing or a rookie. But let's see what happens with Daniels and Seumalo. So the line overall started very well with Fields out there and more healthy. Once Daniels went down, it took a while to get Seumalo back. We had some rookies out there. Russell Wilson, again, holds the ball longer than Fields and is not as mobile as Fields, so the line went downhill as one of the weaker lines in the league toward the end of the year. That is my overview as someone's out there freaking mowing or sawing or something. Again, I apologize. Tell me in the comments down below what you thought of these stats and rankings. Were you surprised by these? What stood out to you? Tell me in the comments. As we get ready for my defensive one next week, I'm going to do a defensive stat rundown and then start talking about free agents. Who do you go after? Who do you keep? Who do you cut? Who do you prioritize? And what do you do for the future of the franchise? We got a lot of questions on offense and a lot of numbers fluctuating. So tell me in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe. These Pittsburgh Steelers deep dives if you want more. Come back next week for the defensive rundown, and then the week after for the free agency extravaganza, where I go over all of our free agents and tell you guys who I'd cut and keep. Take care. Go Steelers.